famille nique, s'en allait tout simplement. Oh Dieu, pauvre et chantant. En tout chemin, en tout lieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu.
I am going to tell you a very important story. A story of a man who went out to choose a religion for his children. And believe me, this is a true story. A story which can only happen in a multicultural society. To explain everything better for you, I use anonymous and morphed random faces. Let me introduce you to Ben. Ben never had thought about God and religion before. With religion he had only to do on Christmas, and he was really indifferent to any God or church. But now everything changed for Ben, because now he is father and must take care of his 2 small children. He has to reflect in which faith he has to educate his children, or if he should train them without religion. How should he decide? His father, Rudy, is a Lutheran Protestant, and he believes in angels. His mother, Ruth, is Jewish, so automatically Ben also is a Jew, because in the Jewish tradition the religion is inherited by the mother. Ruth never educated Ben in any religion, because she believes only in good food. Ben's sister, Ciara, is a shaman, a kind of natural religious medicine woman, and thinks that Ben's children are spiritually underserved. This is Ben's auntie. She is a very devoted religious Protestant Christian and thinks that religious education is very important for children, and always asks Ben if at least he prays with his children. No, Ben did not. Kader is Ben's father-in-law. He is a Muslim, but some details of his own religion are mysterious for him, so he can't explain why Christians and Jews can't go to heaven. Barbara is Ben's mother-in-law. She's a Catholic. Ben don't even really know what this means, but he knows that she's a wonderful grandma. Even when sometimes she calls her grandchildren my little pagans. Because the Muslim religion comes from the father's side, Leila, Ben's wife, is a Muslima. So Ben's question was quite easy. He wanted to know, what are my children finally? Are they Muslim, Protestants, Jews, or really pagans? Or absolutely nothing from all of them? Do you have to search for God, or does he reveal himself? Does God influence the choice of your profession or of your mate or your spouses? Does he exist at all? Ben couldn't explain why he winces always when he thinks only about God. He wants to know if his children would have a more fulfilled life with God or without God. The first person who Ben questioned about his search was his auntie. In questions of religion, auntie goes with the majority principle and said, because you, Ben, are living in a society in which the Christianity is represented higher, you should choose Christianity for your children. not because she's a Christian, but the society in which the children will grow up is Christian. Ben agreed that was a good argument for a compromise. Ben himself is not predestinated to transfer a religion, and his Muslim wife neither, because in Islam it's the father who decides to transmit the faith. And that's how I met Ben. He came to my office and asked me for my advice. And here what I told to Ben. Dear Ben, children are feeling exactly if the parents are standing behind what they want to teach them. If the children feel that you are not standing behind, that you don't identify yourself with what you want to teach, then they will feel lost. You should choose a way for your children where you yourself are standing behind, which yourself find right. Sure, we can baptize your children, but the inside of your child would not grow as a Christian without the help of the parents and wouldn't feel good. So Ben learned from me that he has to become himself a believer to transmit belief to his children. After this, Ben thought about an easier way to bring his children to a faith. There are confessional kindergartens with special educators who can bring religion nearer to his children than he as an unbeliever could do it. He first was invited to a Shabbat ceremony in a Jewish kindergarten. Ben was watching the educators teaching a ceremony to children who couldn't even speak correctly. Does these children even understand what they are doing there? One of the educators explained that in this group, with children from 2 to 5 years, the playfulness is such that the children would only copy what the adults are doing. But the real understanding comes only when children are beginning to become philosophical. When the children are beginning to think about the evolution. With these small children, the educators can only transmit the genesis of the Bible, because only at the age of 6 the children are going to the real school and are confronted with Darwin and the evolution. When Ben asked them what will happen then in the first year of real school, the educator replied, "I don't know. It's no more my age group." And this was the main problem of Ben. What will happen when the children are questioning the Genesis? Let us now continue with Ben's journey to find a religion for his children. Today Ben goes first to a humanist day nursery to know how people who don't believe in a God resolve his problems. Here he meets Martin. Yes, a man as an educator in a humanist kindergarten. Ben wants to know if it might be better to educate children without a belief in God. But Martin proved Ben wrong by saying that even here they convey a belief, but what they convey is the belief in the children's own power. The goal of a humanist educator is to guide the child to believe in his own power and not in a supernatural which in real does not exist. Martin says further, God is not real for children. They can't touch him. And in an emergency situation, there is no God to help them. Children need something tangible. Martin does not believe that's enough when a child is injured, to sit down with him and make a prayer. The most important in a humanist kindergarten is the exchange and the collaboration with the parents. Very often even some parents alternate to spend some time in the kindergarten to assist the educator. On the way to his next appointment, Ben resumed what he just learned. Children should more believe in themselves than in a God. In an evangelic kindergarten, they see naturally everything otherwise. Ben came just before 5 o'clock, when all the children were together for the last evening prayer, while the children were waiting to be picked up by their parents. The first thing Ben realized was that in the humanistic kindergarten before, there was one educator for 8 children, and here in the evangelic kindergarten there are 3 educators for 50 children. After the children were picked up, Ben had a short conversation with the principal. She showed him the nice books they used in her evangelic kindergarten for entertainment and teaching the children. She was really proud to show Ben the golden books with many beautiful illustrations and affirmed that the children really loved the stories of these golden books. And again, Ben asked himself if the children could not by themselves find to their belief without being predetermined by him. Auntie has her doubts because she said this will not work because Ben doesn't educate his children in the right direction. She argued that's wrong to say, okay, if the children are grown, they could choose their faith by themselves. This would not work if Ben does not guide them in the right direction. What should the children choose from if they have not learned into it? Even Ben's Catholic mother-in-law has her opinion about the religious education of his children. She gives Ben the advice to let his children participate in the school's religious education, but she would prefer the Protestant education, because her Catholic religion seems to her too rigid, old-fashioned, and the Catholic sanctimony too heavy for a modern world. The third day of Ben's journey to find a religion for his children. Ben has breakfast with his Jewish mother Ruth and tells her that yesterday he was in a Catholic church and offered a candle on the altar of the Saint Virgin Mary. Ruth could understand because she, even as a Jewish non-believer, always left a stone on the grave when she visited the Jewish cemetery. This is a Jewish tradition. If someone asks her why she does it, she always answers, maybe there is something. You can never know. Ben's family seems really having built a mixture of every religion. Ben remembered when he was on an Orthodox cemetery in East Europe, there only a few crosses on the graves, but all graves had a table to share food and drinks with the dead. During Ben's childhood, nobody seemed missing the lack of religion during his education. That was what he thought before he went to visit his shamanistic sister Ciara. Ciara has overcome the lack of God in her family, and in the meantime she gives shamanistic seminaries. When she made, as adolescent, her first spiritual attempts, everybody in Ben's family was laughing over her. She had to free fight arduously her way to her religion. That's why she thinks to know how Ben could do it better now with his own children. She said, if you ask yourself during 20 years what will be your direction, then you wouldn't have a direction. If you think that all direction might be okay, then choose the direction who's attracting you most. So you will giving the chance to your children to have at least one direction. If you ask yourself for a long time what will be your direction without making your choice, your children will have again the same problem and must again do their own search. And they will have also nothing to transmit to their children. Ben asked Sarah if she thinks if that is bad. Her answer was, if you have predisposed children as she was, it's not bad. But she thinks that it might be easier for her if she has had an earlier guidance. Ben didn't realize how his sister has suffered under the religion-free education of his family. But what happens if not only a child, but the whole country grows without a religious education? To find out, Ben made a travel to East Europe, to the countries behind the former Iron Curtain, the ex-communist, atheist countries. After 1990, these countries attracted all kinds of religious missionaries like shit attract flies. This was a period of religious gold rush, and every denomination tried to have his part from the cake of these unbelievers. Somewhere there, Ben meets Larry, an Irish Methodist pastor. Pastor Larry told Ben how he was shocked when he first came to East Europe. He had a 10-year-old girl in his church looking at this mural picture of Jesus and asking who it is and what he's carrying and what he wears on his head and why. Why is he carrying this cross? This was for Pastor Larry a cultural shock. Coming from Northern Ireland, where every child has heard from Jesus and at least everyone knows the basics of the Christian faith. And here, a child from 10 years who has never heard about Jesus? This was also astonishing for Ben. So it seems that religion can be learned as well unlearned. But is this really evil? Certainly, it's sad when children doesn't understand the Christian marked cultural history of Europe anymore. But is this reason enough to educate them religious, therefore? Ben asked Pastor Larry why children needs God. And Pastor Larry answers, children needs God for the same reason we all need God. A life with God is more beautiful than a life without God. God is on His way with the children, even if the children don't already know this. A life with God is an enrichment, support for today and hope for tomorrow. It gives a meaning to life. On the way home, Ben was again resuming what he learned today. God gives a meaning to life. This sounds good. but is in the same time it's rather vague. On the other side, people like Pastor Larry look so well balanced and convinced in their faith. Ben feels a little regret not to have the same conviction and not the same faith. There must be something. Day 4. Today Ben goes first to a young Baptist faith community. Baptists are also a part of the evangelic confession group. They only get baptized as adults. Baptists say that children aren't mature enough to decide on their faith. The creed of the Baptist is Jesus Christ. They believe that Jesus died individually for every one of them. These young people were telling Ben how fast the religion has changed them, their surroundings, and the manner how they act now with other people since they joined this Baptist group. Ben assists to one of their masses. These young people seem strongly penetrated by their faith. This impressed Ben very much, but at the same time also irritated him. Ben would know and understand where from these young people takes their God contemplation. Do they never have doubts in their God? The answer was, even if you are some days angry with God, so you dispute with God, but you always stand with Him and never leave Him, therefore. All the evil in the world would be worse without God. When they say babies dying from hunger, they praise God that not everybody dies from hunger. They firmly believe that without God, everything would be worse. Even for Ben, this was far too cynical. Not everyone is such profoundly convinced as those Baptists are. There are also in the religion some people who went through a faith crisis. Doubt and faith crisis, that's an interesting view to analyze. What happens if the doubts gain the upper hand? Ben knew that after his divorce, the village pastor Ralph passed a very long time in a psychiatric clinic before he was able again to serve his parish. Ben and Pastor Ralph met in a small cafe because Ben asked him to tell him something about the obvious faith crisis which Pastor Ralph went through. After 3 years in his parish, Ralph's marriage got divorced. He had big problems in his parish. Everything went so far that he even thought to kill himself. His prayers to God became more and more yelling, "God, where are you?" Everything became only darker and darker. The only prayer he could say was the words of Jesus on the cross. my God, why have you forsaken me?" So Christians and other religious people are neither immune against life crises, but is such a life and faith crisis even gives rise to suicidal thoughts. Isn't it better for Ben's children only to trust themselves? To know more about faith crises, Ben spoke to Frank. Frank lived for 8 years as a monk in a Trappist Coventry. This is a Catholic order which is well known for its rigorous rules and for the oath of silence. Frank left the monastery after a deep faith crisis, but now he found back to God, but goes his very special personal spiritual way. He lives now in a brother communion, which through prayer, social work and meditation searches God. Ben asks Frank if with God he has everything better under control than without God. Frank said that is an illusion, like a manager who thinks having everything under control until he has a heart attack and learns that he finally had nothing under control. To know that you have nothing under control opens you a spiritual, religious way. For Frank, it's a quality to say, I have nothing under control. How could he doubt? Doubt is related to a defined conception. It's intellectually absurd to make an image of God. People which are doubting are people which have an image of God before their eyes. Frank means you stop doubting when you stop having a God's image. Ben was not very sure if he understood everything. And he repeated for himself, God may not be seen as a person. God has created the world, but we are not allowed to make him responsible for our behavior. If we are doing good or bad, it's alone and only in our hand. An interesting question came up to Ben. Is it only possible to reach God through religion? Brother Frank gave Ben an absolute new idea. Meditation as way to experience God, absolute independent from religion and confession. More of this at day 5. Day 5. Today, Ben's best friend brought Ben to his yoga teacher. After some light yoga and breath exercises, Ben's butt was so much hurting that already here he couldn't understand how people can sit there and do this for hours. Rani, the yoga teacher, explained Ben that he comes from a Christian background and found God only through yoga. In Christianity, he lost God, but found him back through yoga. He has found back what is divinity and an experience what God can be. It's no more the matter to believe, to have a concept in the head or to say yes or no, but it turns to a unique experience and a certitude that God, or this God called power, exists. Rani explained further, when he sits there and feels the breath through his spine, he sits 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then it happens. I personally can understand very good what Rani means. When I am constipated, I can sit 10 minutes on the toilet before my legs fall asleep. Then after 15 or 20 minutes, when I finally have my relief, I also hear the angels singing. More interesting for Ben was to watch some advanced yogi practicing their exercises. This was very unpleasant to Ben, and also that Rainey, to convince him and gain him as client, used some cold reading techniques. But Ben gave not up and tried his experience with some people noted as more honest. Even if the way of meditation is not what Ben liked more, so maybe his children would have better access to it. Children meditation centers are opening everywhere for the moment. With the Buddhist, meditation is a central element. It's not a wonder that again now the Buddhist temple have more and more popularity. This also is a parents' movement because of the oversubscription of Ritalin and other psychotropic drugs to children. Ben hopes here to find new insights of the correlation between meditation and enlightenment. Two monks explained Ben that Buddha is life in Dharma. If you understand Dharma, you can see or recognize Buddha. Yes, okay. But what is Dharma? Dharma is an exercise and an education method. Not believing. Belief has nothing to do with Dharma. Further, there is the karma. All the good we received and also all the bad things are a result of our former life. Nobody is sitting there and guides 6 billion people. It's too much human to think if there is something what we don't understand to say God did it. The only power who is karma. Karma makes the world go around. All our own characteristics, we brought them from our previous life. If in our former life you had not seeded a particular characteristic, this cannot flourish in your actual life. Ben said he remembered very well that as a child he was pure and fine, with compassion for other people and animals, and he thinks that's a normal behavior for children. But the monk answered that he believed that Ben was such a child, but other children pull out the wings of bucks and are really cruel. No, that's not inside every child. It's what the child brought from his former life. The monk ended and said to Ben, "Religion is a perfect education method for children. You can see this in East Asia, where children from about 5 years passes 8 months in a Buddhist monastery and are educated by monks. The Buddhist religion don't exclude you to be also member of another religion." A good advice for my American followers. In Europe 30 years ago, most of the atheists told they were Buddhist to avoid the word atheist. They had a fat Buddha in the house entrance, and everybody accepted that they had at least a faith. And if you are superstitious, caress the belly of Buddha, it seems bringing good luck. Day 6. Do you remember Kader, Ben's father-in-law? Kader explained to Ben that in Islam, praying is the paramount for every faithful Muslim. 5 times a day to set times, the prayer must be held in direction of Mecca. For Ben's father-in-law, the affiliation to a religion is not that important, but his Muslim relatives would appreciate if the children would join the Islam. But what should children do to become Muslim? To find out, Ben met Ibrahim, a spokesperson from a nearby mosque. Ibrahim explains, "In Islam, there are 6 religious aspects: and somebody who believes in these 6 aspects is automatically a Muslim. There is no contract, no membership contribution, everything happens only and directly between the Muslim and God. It's also impossible to exclude someone from the religion because there is no written contract. If I want to proclaim that I am a Muslim, I must testify this before witnesses, and they know then that I am their brother or sister and have a relation with them in faith. Then repeats, so you can only say you're a Muslim without a celebration of a given ritual, and then you are a Muslim. Ben asks Ibrahim how in a Western country a Muslim can find to his religious identity. Ibrahim confirms that this is a real problem for children and even for adolescents. During the school time, they are pushed in a corner as Muslim or because coming from a Muslim family. They are excluded by the teacher for certain subjects by a false respect of something that the teachers don't know. But these children are only children as others and want to share the same education like their comrades. The identity crisis does not come from these children, but is provoked by the exclusion of and in the school. This is what forces most of the children having a religious identity they didn't want in the first place. The only thing they wanted is playing, laughing, and being the same as their comrades. By many adolescents, this results in frustration. They are pushed to say or admit that they are Muslim, without knowing what it really means to be a Muslim. Many of those frustrated young people are open to those extremist Islamist hate preachers, only because our educational system didn't treat them as children but treated them as Muslim children. The extremism and opposition to a Western education comes rarely from the families. No, they want to be integrated and want in majority the best for their children. These families are waiting for us to give them an alternative and help them to get out of the influence of their self-proclaimed religious leaders, and sometimes even from their roots in a country far, far away. Maybe not by sharing with them at your first meeting a pork barbecue and beer, but by speaking to them with the respect that our culture should have toward our guests. The Islam is an imported religion. Like Christianity is also an imported religion to us. What is the religion we had before Christianity came over Europe and has been exported to America and Africa? This will be the subject for day 7 of Ben's search for religion for his children. Day 7. Today, Ben meets a pagan, a high priest, some Hindu yogi, and atheists. Because all the religions we know are imported religions, Ben wants to know what was the original popular religion where he lives. He went to meet with a Gentile, a heathen, a pagan, also called in German Heiden. Heide means originally field and nature. It was the Goths from the 4th century who introduced this word for their remaining nature-worshipping tribesmen. From the translation in French comes païen and the English word pagan. To know more about this religion, Ben meets Jalodi, the high priest of the Nordic Germanic paganism. They met in the deep forest at a very special plot where the pagans celebrate their annual festivals and cults. Jalodi explains, the pagans don't have the world view that the humans stand over the creation. And this is the most important factor about paganism. Because if you understand yourself as a ruler over the world, you're always tempted to change the nature by drying more land or damming a river or pollute the nature. This a pagan would never do. Pagans understand themselves as a part of the nature, and the nature is made by the gods and is predominating the whole creation. Ben thought, this is a very nice, clean and ecological religion, but want to know from Jalodi what's so especially Nordic in his religion. Jalodi explains that the Christians and other religions imagine the hell as a hot place with eternal fire. But this is because these religions are created in the Orient where it's really hot. So heat was for them the worst imaginable. But in the Nordic mythology is a water and ice hell. Over a fire hell here in the north, people would be very happy to escape the cold and go to this warm fireplace after they died. On the way home, Ben had the thought that it's absolutely useful to have a religion which is based on your region. Ben finds this religion very attractive, but in the city where he lives aren't any practicing pagans, and he has no time to found with his children a little pagan community. Nearby Ben's place is a little Hindu temple. The priest tells Ben that the Hindus don't have an universal credo. Only this part was attracting to Ben, because the Hindus believe that life and death are an eternally repeating cycle of being born, dying, and being reborn, and dying, and reborn, and dying. The religious teachers, the gurus, have a very high position. Ben asked him if his children could become Hindus. But the gurus were only disputing between themselves if it is possible or not. They don't know if it's possible to become a Hindu. You can become a Hindu believer, but not a Hindu. To become a Hindu, you must be born as a Hindu. This was certainly nothing for Ben, and neither for his children. Now Ben wants to know what's about people who are in the absolute opposite to religion. He went to meet atheists. In his town, some atheists were running around with a special bus to tell the people how they can live without God. I think I don't have to tell you, my parish, what is atheism. Only one question. Nobody of the atheists could answer Ben correctly. Please answer me this in the below bar. The question is, what is good to that not believing in God. 8th and last day of Ben's search for religion for his children. After visiting all the different religions, for Ben this brought only new questions. What will happen in a mixed religious family if someone died? What can be the possible problems? Ben meet Volkan. Volkan works in a very big Undertaker Institute and it's the head of the department Death and Faith. Volkan explains. A human being brings along whatever his culture dictates him. Some want only a burial, other a cremation, or other a burial at sea, because their culture dictated to them. This is ingrained, it's stored in the brain, and the relatives from the given culture finds it normal that it has to be done like this because it's one of them. It's like washing the hands before eating and brushing the teeth before going to bed. That's also the cause why multicultural conflicts happens. These problems don't happen because someone wants this or that. No, they happen because one culture can't communicate their traditions to the other. Ben wants to have Volkan's opinion on the education of his children. Volkan only says, if the parents have a good agreement, it will be up to the children to decide. Later on, if they want to become Christian, Muslim or Jew or something other, so why not let them choose? What do you gain when you have a faith that was imposed to you under pressure? This is neither the meaning, neither the purpose of a religion. With all these elements of investigation, Ben was now ready to make a conclusion. The whole religious multi-mixed family celebrates together Christmas, the celebration of love, as if God would exist. And for the children don't even care, for them only the gifts are important. What religion for Ben's children? He still don't know. He met so many people who believe so rock solid in God. But he, Ben, certainly remains a non-believer because in his investigations, God himself, he has not encountered. If one day in his children the interest for God will be awake, Ben would sustain them by bringing them to churches, mosques, synagogues, temples and encounter groups without commenting. Ben would not defend himself if education would work in the opposite side. Maybe Ben's children would affect him one day with their religion. I hope you enjoyed this little film, and for parents, maybe I gave you and your children a help in your search. Please tell your friends about my channel, rate this video, and all your comments are welcome. I wish you all my best. Peace.